Good afternoon. This is Malin from Hearts&Minds Development Center. Thank you for joining us. Can you believe it? It's actually Being Whole, Being Me, Series 91. Well, if you are now watching this show, encourage me, and I would be grateful if you said hello and, give us a comment. Please, I know you're at the background listening to and watching our show. So, why is it important? Because we have Bavani Periasamy and Reggie. Thank you. And I am grateful that you are the godmother of the family. Now, you see, the moment she gave me a compliment, I forgot my line, right? So, we are going to talk to Bavani Periasamy, who wrote this book or who co-authored this book, How Dare They? I mean, the title of the book itself will tell you this doesn't sound as humble, isn't it? Because if you know Bhavani, in the first chapter, she's already telling you how difficult and challenging it was and how she thought she is just a simple girl. So we want to actually figure out how did this just a simple girl who is now an author and a speaker and a coach became so bold and became audacious. With that, let's bring on Bavani Periasamy.
Hello, hi Malal.
Hi Bhavani, how are you? Hello. So you have people, Regina. I don't know whether you know Regina, but she is my family godmother, and
nice.
and yeah, she's amazing, and of course our darling Sarjit. Hi Sarjit, I know you're here yeah, Sarjit is there to support you, and Anita, Anita's daughter was online last week. Awesome girl. And yes, Regina says Bhavani sounds awesome. I want to be her friend, and that's so easy, Reggie, because if you don't know Bhavani is the goddess of gratitude.
Thank you.
People call her guru, but I'm going to call her goddess. Wow, you have one more supporter, Sasidaran Paramasivam, my favorite coach, Bavani Periasamy. Okay, come and say hello. Thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, so Bavani.
Yes.
How dare you write this book?
Because I dare.
I know, right? And then, when we were preparing this video of yours, she's writing there, I thought I was just another simple, woman. So can you tell me first, how did you transition from being this simple woman, simple Indian lady, to being this audacious woman? Tell us the journey first.
So I think the right way to answer that is I'm still simple. And I think back then I was audacious and bold. I just didn't know it. So
Okay.
along the way, I met awesome people. I learned a lot about myself, and I think it's just about perspectives being shifted around to see what I'm really capable of. Because here's the thing: from the time I was a little girl, my parents always told me, especially my father, that you can always do what you want. It's whether or not you want to do it. So him being my father and also a teacher, I thought it's default that they should be motivating me. I never listened to them. It takes um it takes a whole lot of experience and a lot of incidences to make me realize my father has been right all along. I just ignored him, thinking that it was his job to tell his girl, you can do this. And also because he's a teacher. So I knew it. It just didn't sink into this thick skull that I actually could do it. It took me a while to figure that out. That's the
And
irony. That's the
yeah,
irony because as a
I
child,
think
I used to have people bringing their kids to the house and telling my father, please advise them, please give them some tips. Mana tahu, own kid also need another person to do that for them. But that's the irony. But I don't regret a single thing.
nice, nice, nice. Well, I think that's why it's important. Well, if you haven't got the book, please get the book. Of I know three of the authors, and they're my favorite people whom I've met. And the other three, not because they're not favorite. I haven't met them, so I'm sure it's okay. But I've read Bavani's part. Um, so let's uncover before we go into gratitude, right? Let's
Mhm.
uncover because you tell in the introduction of the book how you actually struggled a little bit with the word audacious and how your mother knocked the sense into you. Hey, you're like that, lah, right? Okay, I if my mother is watching, she will say, yeah, yeah, I wish I can slap you. Also, tell you the same.
Yeah,
But
because
I thought that was an interesting transition. So one is maybe you can tell us because I think first and foremost, Sasi, I love T systems people, and yes, it's lovely to know you're an ex-T system employee. And Sasi also says, this is Bhavani's humble way, always simple. Yeah, I totally agree with you. So, and I think a lot of us, if not all, but generally, I think women, I've never been a man, so I cannot speak for men, so I speak as a woman. For women, I think we tend to struggle with the idea of being bold because it's seldom seen as a positive thing, right? So help me understand what was your struggle because you have this image of who you are,
Mhm.
humble, simple, da, right? And then the word audacious probably has a particular picture for you. Maybe
Yes,
that was the difficulty until your mom helped you to see, hello, you've been bold all
yes,
along, right? So
correct.
tell me what is the resistance that you experienced and how you embraced your whole self. That you can be humble yet audacious, simple yet audacious. So tell us that journey.
I think why the struggle was because of, you see, when my friend Fuan first came to me and asked to co-author, I just quickly said yes, thinking that I'll figure it out along the way. I have co-authored before. How difficult could it be? And it's being co-authored, so the stress is not fully on me. So I said yes. It was when I was doing the chapter, then I suddenly realized, oh God, what did I get into? Why? Because I remember the first time I heard the word audacity, I think maybe easily 15, 17 years ago. And it was in the context of something was going on. And I heard this voice in this place saying, the audacity of that person to say that thing. So it felt like it was a negative way of being. Like, how dare he go and say this at this place? So I think that kind of subconsciously stuck into me that audacity is a negative word, or that if you're audacious, people are not going to be your fans, or they may not like you if you're being audacious. And then I was like, what did Fuan get me into trying to talk about being audacious? And I asked a few friends,
Mm.
thinking that my friends could probably answer me. And then one person went like, Nia. I mean, in Tamil means you.
You.
Audacious? No lah, very good.
Mm,
And a few friends actually said that no lah, you are nothing nothing audacious about you. And then I'm like, there must be a reason why Fuen asked me to do this. So I went to Fuen. Fuen also gave me her description, and again I felt like because she's my friend, she's being very nice to me. Didn't help me much. So I went to my mother. My mother, Amma is an English teacher. So I remember calling my mother on the phone, like, Ma, what does audacious means, audacity? And then she kept quiet for a while. And then I knew my mother was processing this and how to tell me the best way, knowing that I can either flip this way or flip the other way. And then she's like, the word audacity, it depends on how you look at it. And then I go like, Ma.
mm,
She's like, no, wait. Because you see, it depends how you look at the word audacity.
mm,
Because in certain ways, audacity could be, you could be like, you're not in a very well liked position. It could be you are being rude, obnoxious, or doing
mm,
something that people dislike.
mm,
Or on the other hand, it could also be someone who's taking risk, someone who is standing up for something that he or she believes in. And I think that perhaps is the part that applies to you. You have been known to doing things rather drastically. You have been known to stand up for things, and perhaps that's a part of audacity that describes you. And I went, okay, Amma cannot be wrong. And it made
mm,
sense because
mm,
mothers knows us well, right? So what she said, and then because some of my previous history in doing things, I walked out of my fiance because I was cheated on. I quit a job just because I couldn't stand some things that was going on. Those were for me bold moves. I did it without thinking. I just did it because it was right for me at that time. So these were
mm,
things that Amma said, that's the audacity in you, being able to walk away, bold, risky movements at that point,
mm,
and then that's what makes you audacious. So I said, okay, there must be audacity in me, and I started writing. And it's only as I started writing, I started to realize there are a lot of things actually I've been doing that has been audacious. It's just that I never put a name to it. I just felt that that was the right thing to do at that time. It was the right thing to stand up and speak up for something. It was then, I think, really looking at the word audacity itself and realizing not just me, I think a lot of us have been audacious, but we probably don't relate to the word audacious. Maybe we just use the word bold, or sometimes people say very daring. So yeah, this is entire few months that we were writing this book really got me reflecting a lot. And yeah, while some, especially coming from different cultures and all, being bold may not be necessarily what people really look upon to or look upon fondly to. So I guess from the culture that I come from, being bold is way too audacious.
mm. So, Bhavani, actually, what I got out of you, and I just want to take you through that because I think you've given me at least something really beautiful to process. So it sounds to me that audacious for you, or it could be for anybody else, is to do the right thing for you that may not be widely acceptable.
Probably yes.
Yeah, because that's when it's not accepted. So when you're doing something that is right, doesn't mean everybody accepts it. Everybody else or the space around you wants you to be somebody else, right? And which means that if but you are doing it because that's right and it's unpopular. And when it's unpopular, that means people there is a larger audience out there looking at what is right for you as negative, which means that you're going to get criticized for it, right? And that's why it needs courage.
Yes, and I think the one word I would add on here is not to fear the decision that you make or the action that you take.
Tell me more.
For an example, quitting my job because it was a toxic work culture. Everyone else was telling me you need to make sure you have another job, you need to have a job secured, you have an offer letter on hand. That was putting a lot of fear in me. But when I quit, I didn't let that fear stop me. So it was just going against fear and doing it, because quitting at that point was important for me, for my sake and for my mental sake. So it
Okay,
was not having
let's,
fear.
let's process that a little bit, right? Because it's not that you were not fearful, there was fear, but you only need courage when there's fear, right? So, number one.
Yes.
So, am I right by saying that people were right, the right logical thing to do is get another job first before you quit logically? But because the right thing for you then is your own sanity and your own
Yes.
health, right? And because the place was toxic for you, what you're doing now is that doing the right thing that may not be logical or popular, but that's the right thing for you. Now, is there fear? There is fear, but you are
Yes.
doing the right thing for yourself despite the fear. And when
Yes.
you do the right thing, what then happens to the fear eventually?
um I guess at that point I lived with it, because having the sanity was greater than whatever that people were saying. So it
Okay.
was a bold, risky move at that point.
Mm. So the
In my
fear is real,
20s.
the risk is real, everything is real, but it's actually just getting it done, and then you realize, oh, okay, that wasn't so bad after all.
Yeah,
which
correct.
which makes you audacious in eventually, right? Okay, a couple of people have come. Thank you so much for bringing in the crowd. For the people who just joined us, subscribe to our YouTube, please, right? So, hi, Go Chi Yong. And Go Chi Yong says hello to Bavani Udam Singh.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. Hi, Tiffany. She is saying, hello, Mallory and Bhavani. Happy Friday. It is indeed a happy Friday because we've got so many new people. And how can I leave out my dear Dr. Nimala? She said she went out and got Dare to Dream just 2 days ago, missed the official launch. Well, now you know what else you need to get, how dare they. I think maybe you will like this. Now, if it's okay for me, because so I think the work part is interesting, easy, but you also did share about something really personal about walking out of a fiance.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something you're okay if I ask you first?
Sure, go ahead.
Because we have never spoken about it, so I'm very
Oh, yes,
grateful.
no problem.
I'm grateful that
Just,
you
just
said
I'm sorry for my cough, but other than that, go ahead.
no worries. Now, so no, forget about it's not about him. I'm assuming it's a him, but yeah,
It was
it's
a
not.
hit.
It was a him. Whew. Okay, so it's a him. Now, so tell me what. So I think people get into crossroads of relationships, and I think there is a tendency to want to hold on. All right. If you could help us understand the audacity in being at the crossroad, because I think a lot of people can be in the crossroad and not having the courage because the fear is greater than the courage. So tell us a little bit, how did you come to make that choice?
Okay. First, it's been so long ago. I think yes, it was a fiance, because we were starting to talk about marriage and all of that. Our parents have met and all of that. But what happened was a few instances where I found I was cheated on, and I did try to make it work. I did try to do my own soul searching. I was not the person who I am right now, but I tried to do soul searching, see whether there was something I could do better. I tried all of that. I had conversations. It just came to a point I couldn't tolerate it anymore. So I wanted to quit. But then it went to a next level where parents got involved, and my family said, you know what, he has apologized to us, why not give it a try? And I actually agreed, and I said, okay, I'll give it a try, because now that parents are involved, he wouldn't dare, right? But somehow things didn't really work out, and I knew I had to make another choice for my sanity. I'm not confessing to murder, but I probably would have murdered him later on if it went on. So I knew I had to make a choice, and it was not easy because now it involves families. Families have met, families have spoken, relatives have got involved, and all these things suddenly becomes a society community thing. It's not just your wedding alone or your marriage. um, but I had a conversation with my parents, and this was the thing. My father and mother actually said, people may talk, but then it's your life. You're going to live your life, and not everyone is going to be beside you, so you got to decide what's right or wrong, and whatever it may be, we will support you. And I am so blessed I had such parents. So
Nice.
I decided that the right thing to do was to walk away, because I can't go in knowing that this could potentially happen again. So I chose to walk away. I chose to walk away. And what happened was, of course, very caring relatives and society started to rally on and say, who's going to marry you after this? And I'm like, what? Does that mean that's the end of my life? That shouldn't be. But I loved what my dad actually said. He said, I rather see her cry today, one day, than to see her cry the rest of her life.
Oh,
So she decides. And I think that was the greatest comfort I had, knowing that I had to do this. So I didn't realize I was being audacious as well at that point.
mm.
It's just like now I think about it, yeah, how dare I walk out?
Nice, nice, nice.
At that
Thank you.
point, it didn't feel that way.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much because I mean I've known you a little bit, but I think to get
Yeah.
so personal, I am truly grateful that you're willing to share this story because one, it's very personal. Number two, it transitions us to our topic. How dare they? Gratitude. Okay, going back to that story of you being
Mm,
audacious, as to while there was community pressure, and the pressure is real, right? And everybody means well and good. We understand all of
true.
that, right? But
Yes.
the people mean well. I know, some of the things that I've seen as old fashioned and traditional. I understand the good intention behind trying to save a relationship or anything that I advice that I get from the community. I'm appreciating it more now than before. I understand it, right? But to then go against pressure, you did, which was audacious. Now, if you look at that, the two decisions that you made, which was audacious, both leaving a job without a job, as or leaving a toxic environment without a job, and this is also in some ways toxic, right? Because staying in the relationship is slowly going to kill you, yeah, and that's toxic emotionally, right? And walking out of it. Today, if you talk about, would you say that you're grateful for it?
Yeah, I will.
Which now brings us into why she's the goddess of gratitude. So, if I can go back to that two stories, tell me, when did those two difficult, painful moments became gratitude for
Actually, it wasn't at that point. It was only later I realized it was. I really understood blessing in disguise, what the true meaning of it. At that point, trust me, I didn't think of it that way. It was more of survival. Um, in fact, I was actually going through this spiral of why me? Why is this happening to me? And coincidentally, these two things happened quite near one another. Was within
you?
the space of 1 year.
Mm,
So can imagine the amount of data that's churning in my head and all the history going up in my head. So gratitude was the last thing I was feeling at that time. But
mm,
the one thing I was very sure was I knew I made the right decision
mm,
at that point. I
mm,
knew I didn't regret doing that, but I had all these other little things in my head about, oh, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? Why is this happening to me? I had all of that, but I never regretted taking that action. None at all.
Okay, so let's just park it for a bit, and I'm going to say hello to hi Sheikh Omar Anwar. He says hi Bavani, and
Hi.
Major Prabhakaran is here. Major, thank you for making time. So he's come all the way from Bavani. Okay, he doesn't appear every week. So Major, thank you for coming. So transition again, right? Like you, what I like about even the goddess was upset, goddess of gratitude was upset. So when something bad happens to us, I know, I think it's very easy for us sometimes to say, hey, count your blessing, something good will come out of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's easy when you're not in it for people to say it. So
Oh
know
yes.
people that when Bhavani was going through it, she wasn't sitting there and saying, thank God, thank God, thank God. You didn't say that, right? So she was
No.
going through what we call the normal grind. Why is it happening? Life is not fair. Why people are like that and stuff like that, which is good. Now, at which moment, however long it took, right, doesn't matter, right? I think different events will need
Mhm.
different length of time. Different wounds need different space and time to heal, right? So when you finally healed from this two wounds, it was painful. You left. It was painful, and you needed to. When you held, at which moment do you remember that number one is like, oh, I'm so grateful that it happened, and why were you grateful for it?
I actually don't even know when I actually felt that way. I think it was many years after that.
Sure.
But I think the turning point for life itself in general
Mm.
was also not too far after those incidences, because that was
Mm.
when I joined a training company.
Okay.
And remember now, this is where I need to emphasize, I came from a very toxic work culture, and I never knew any other work culture.
Mm.
So when I joined um, this company, I was expecting similar thing,
Mm.
but to my surprise and horror, it was not. And I was just waiting for the shoe to drop, but it never dropped. And I was just thinking, is this for real? Because
Jonathan, right?
Jonathan and Raymond, yes, Jonathan,
Jonathan, shout out to you. Raymond, shout out to you.
yes, Jonathan Lau, Raymond Poon, because I don't think they realized to what extent I had gone through. So they were just being who they were. They were not putting an act or what I thought they were at that time.
Yeah.
Sorry. But really, they were just being who they were. They were just encouraging, supportive. And it was very difficult for me to accept that, because I came from a background where I was blamed for everything, or not just me. Whoever who worked there got blamed for everything. We were shouted upon. There's no such thing as work-life balance. So when hear people say thank you to you, you're taken by surprise. Like, I'm
Mm.
getting a salary. Why do you need to say thank you to me? Um, that's the irony about how I actually felt at that time.
Nice.
And they were. I used to beat myself up so badly when I made a mistake. And
Mm.
it came to a point that my bosses actually had to sit me down and say, you do 10 right things and you do one
Mm.
mistake. You
Mm.
focus so much on the one mistake, but you don't look at the 10 things that you did right.
Mm.
And I'm
Mm.
like, but my old bosses only saw what I did wrong. They never saw what I did right.
Mm.
So I think it
Mm.
was so an experience for them to manage me, how I came. It was a acceptance and learning process, I think, for both parties. For me to accept that they were real, and
Mm.
also for my bosses to really let me see the positive things that was happening around me. Because like
Mm.
they said, I never saw the 10 things I did right. I was so focused on the one thing I may have made a mistake on. So it's
Okay.
like, so what did you learn? My previous boss never asked me these questions. What did you learn? What would you do better? And like, see lah, this is the kind of mistake you make. And then like, here your bosses are like, it's okay. So what did you learn from this? What would you do better from here? And I'm like, are these guys for real? But then I realized that they were just using coaching and all these things that we learn in learning and development. They were just putting those things to use, trying to get me move past. So I think that was my starting point to start appreciating the right things in life rather than the things that were not going right. So
Nice,
it was
nice.
celebrating the things I did well or I did right rather than the ones I didn't do right. So maybe that was my turning point, which was first starting to look at what I did right. And then it was being thankful for that. And I also started to notice something, because my bosses paid a lot of attention to make sure that if there was a success, if there was a celebration, they were trainers. So client feedbacks are always, oh, the training was good, or you did a good session, and they'll come back and thank us. And we're like, no, you are the trainers. And they'll say, yes, but we couldn't have done what we did if you guys didn't support us from office.
Mm.
And that was also another turning point for me, which was the appreciation culture. They they I think started that off for all of us at work, which is success was not theirs, it was a shared success. Even though we are not the ones going and training on stage, we are not the ones 9 to 5 at client's place, but we realize, or I realize, that because now I wanted to do more, and I
Nice.
find that I was far more productive. I didn't like long holidays, I didn't like weekends, because I love being in the office. I really love working, and I when I started telling my friends I love my bosses, they thought I've gone nuts. But
Yeah,
really, I
yeah.
really started loving work, because it was so different from the toxic culture that I was in, and that
Okay.
was where I started talking about saying thank you, being appreciative, because
Okay.
I know the two ends of the diagram.
So it's interesting. So I like what you just said, and I hope Kirtana has listened to this. because whenever I do tell Kirtana, she's like my backbone, right? In all my successes, I must say not in my failures, because the failures is usually my own self, right? And whenever I do tell that, she does doubt me, and so you have said it, so I'm going to ask her to listen to this again, so that she knows that for all trainers it's the same. We can look well on the outside, but our support system is so good. So Kirtana, this is for you.
And I
Okay.
agree. Knowing Kirtana, and I know what she does for you, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Kirtana, did you hear that? Okay, she's going to like ping Sun for a while, but never mind. Let's come back to the topic, because we only have 25 minutes. So from your story, what I'm hearing is that you came from a place where you were criticized, and then you joined a place where they showed you gratitude. They learned how to thank you. So that seems to be like a clean or unconscious transition. That means you started feeling being appreciated for what you were contributing and what you would have seen as your job,
Yes.
as your duty. And suddenly people are thanking you for your duty, and then you want to do more.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And when you do more, you become a better person, more skilled, da. And of course, you've transformed your whole career from whatever you were doing to becoming an international speaker and a coach, right? And an author, right? So
Yes.
you're already showing us how just having been grateful, or being grateful, has led you to the path that you are today, that you didn't think you would be. Because I did read in your book when you said, I thought I will be a gratitude speaker in my 50s, and then it came through much
Yes.
early, and that
Yeah,
was
because
such a
I thought you needed to have gray hairs, and then to say that I have 20, 30 years of experience. I thought I
just to
needed to.
let you know, gray hair doesn't come in the 50s alone, it comes earlier. But okay, I can accept the 50s, right? So you thought it was because when I was reading it, I said, but Bhavani is not in her 50s. Then only I realized
No,
that's what
I,
you thought.
yeah.
But how you see, when you're grateful, like in this case, when I say you're grateful, you do more, you want to
Yep.
give more. When you give more to the world, the universe gives you back, well, a lot more. Life is a boomerang, right? And that a lot more has led you to who you are today and the results that you get in your life, right? So your gratitude seems to be, okay, I was taken for granted. Now I'm not expecting any thank you. People are saying thank you. You now experience being the receiver of gratefulness.
Yes.
Correct? Now,
Yes.
tell me, when you receive gratitude, how does that shape you first? Because we're going to talk about the giver, but as a receiver, I mean, you do research in this area. when we receive gratitude, what happens to us mentally, emotionally, physically, biologically? I don't know, whatever Lee that you want to talk about. So tell us
Okay.
a little bit of what you know. Yeah.
I think first, in most cases, um, unless you're really expecting someone to go all out and say something to you, but in most cases, first it takes them by surprise that someone reached out to them or did an act or something to show them that kindness or that gratefulness. And second, that there will be this, if you look closely the next time, just look at the smile on that person's face, or that sudden glow that comes on that person's face. So that's the physical biological changes that you would notice. And in a lot of cases, suddenly people may suddenly feel that they are worth something, or that what they did mattered, because maybe no one else has verbalized to them, or they didn't think that what they did or the effort that they put in was actually recognized by someone else. And I'm saying this in general because those are the feedbacks I get, after sessions, or when, like, oh, I didn't realize, after the exercise, my boss actually came and said this to me. So it really takes people by surprise when you surprise them with it. And there is a shift in a biological sense, and there's this warm feeling that just envelopes them around the heart and all of that, because suddenly they feel, wow, it is almost like being surprised with, I don't know, a lottery. It's as good as that. I have had people share that kind of experience. I didn't realize that people notice what I have done. So it is just little things when you express gratitude with authenticity, with real meaning. It brings wonders to the receiver. You feel good because you said it, but I think the bigger changes actually happen to the receiver.
Okay.
Especially in my case, where I actually felt I was worthless, I was good for nothing, especially with the history that I was carrying with me. Being told thank you did wonders to my self-esteem, because I thought, when you're scolded often enough, you actually feel that you're not worth anything. So that gave me a lot of self-esteem, and I felt worthy again. So you never know the thank you that you say, the appreciation that you show. You do not know the chemical reactions, the emotional reactions that triggers on the other person.
Nice. Nice. Oh, well, just to let you know, right, I have a book where I keep all my thank you notes from my past
Nice.
participants, because there are days I wake up and after a difficult project, or what is seen as a failure or a mistake, where I really doubt myself, and of course, as a mother, I get into spaces where I doubt too, and I keep the notes my children have given me when they were so innocently writing, "You're the best mother in the world" and all of that. And now they're teenagers. I'm like doubting, am I doing a good job? And sometimes I fail. These notes help me to remember what I was, what I can be, and what I could be in the future. So I think what you're saying is really very powerful, because as human beings, we all want to exist and we want to be noticed. We want to be visible. And I think you've actually helped us to differentiate. Not It's just not the physical visibility, but that our action matters, right? That what
Yes.
I did made a difference in your life, and I'm going to tell you that I'm grateful because your action made a difference in my life. And I want you to know that. And how you take it, whether you want to repeat it, like positive reinforcement, right? Whether you want to repeat it or not, then that becomes part of your being. So that's me being grateful. Now, tell me, so before we go into the giver, right? You know how sometimes usually parents lah, huh? Or the older generation, right? They say, you should be grateful, that you have a job, you're this, you're that. We tend to think we can teach gratitude, or we can force people to be grateful, right? I can tell you, I think generally I am a grateful person, but I don't shout out, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful. So for me, my gratitude is really I seldom complain. Well, at least that's what I think. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
right, I think I seldom complain. That's how I check in with my gratitude. But there are times my heart just warms up with acts that I receive from people, whether they send me a kind message, or
Mhm.
or they actually, like after a program, someone tells me, someone who I see as a bigger speaker or greater speaker, for example, someone you look up to comes and says, hey, I really enjoyed your talk. Like, that would really warm my heart. Like, I can feel the warmth of the heart, and it stays there for a while, because
Yep.
for me, that's how gratitude. There are times I do know that, in difficult times, I'm trying to think, okay, be positive and be grateful. But that gratitude is a very cognitive gratitude. That means I'm trying to think positively, right? And that's good, because neuroplasticity can happen, and I can
Correct.
think some good things will happen. But I think there are two parts of gratitude. It's one, how
Yes.
you think gratitude, but the power is really when we feel together and I feel gratitude in my body,
Okay.
right? So for a giver,
Mm-hmm.
forget about the receiver, right?
Yep.
For
Yep.
a giver, now when I give gratitude, when I want to be a grateful person, help us to understand what happens in the head when we're doing cognitive gratitude, and what happens to our body when we embrace it and we really feel it. And you can't force this. We know you can't force this, but let's see what happens first and how to make it happen if we want this for ourselves. Okay, back
Okay.
to you.
Before I go into that, I just want to touch a little bit about what you said earlier. When you wake up in the morning, or you just went through a tough project, or you're feeling down. So here's something that I just want to shout out. Just because I'm a gratitude advocate doesn't mean that my life is a bed of roses, and that I am happy and cheerful as you see me right now. Far, far from it. So here's the thing. While I speak about gratitude, I speak about appreciation, being thankful. Trust me, life still goes on, and we are all just humans. And there are a lot of emotions that we go through in a day, and the toughest part is when things are not going the way you wanted, or things take you by surprise.
Mm,
That is the toughest time for you to feel grateful. And I have come to a point right now where I will say this, and I'll advocate this. It's okay if there are times in life where you really can't bring yourself to feel grateful, because if we force ourselves, we are suppressing a lot of other things. And Malar, I don't think I need to educate you on this. You're really suppressing a lot of other things just because you wanted to be positive, be happy, be grateful, because you're not addressing a lot of things. You're just burying things under the rug, and the danger to that is you never know when that's going to explode.
mm,
So at this point, especially during COVID, I came to a point where I tell people, if you're down, it's okay to feel down. I will not tell you be grateful you're alive, because it's
mm.
you would really feel like giving the other person a two tight slaps, like,
I agree.
because all of us, we go through different experiences, we carry emotions in a different way, and it really will not do justice. It really will not do justice if we were to tell someone, despite all that you're going through, you should be grateful you're alive.
Mm,
It's almost as if we do not have an empathy for them anymore.
mm,
So, so that's the first thing that I wanted to say. It's okay that if you don't feel grateful when you're going through something. But having said that, not addressing what's happening at that point would also be a grave danger to you. So it's also finding out how do you move away from whatever that you're experiencing.
mm,
Now, coming back to your question, Malar, see, I think most of us, we will know about all these happy neurons, neurotransmitters, and all of these things. So from, pardon me while I use very layman terms, or as I understand it, from the head part of it, this is where we practice, or we build up the neuroplasticity about it. Because after a while, it becomes like, you tune yourself to go back to that frame of mind. If you do it long enough, and it gets into your DNA to practice that. For an example, when we get up, we know we go and brush our teeth. We don't think too much, but at one point we will actually go and brush our teeth when we get up. So that's the brain part of it, which is practicing. And during that's why people actually say write or journal, because the act of journaling actually fires up, I think, neurons on the brains and all of that, and that produces the happy, what do you call that, what's the word for it, the happy,
Happy hormones.
yes, happy hormones, thanks, the dopamine, serotonin, all of those things, endorphins. Now, I'm not sure whether it's fair to say those are the brain part of it, but from the emotion heart part of it is really really feeling grateful. Is how do I say this? Okay, I'm not a mother yet, but I've seen my sister, my cousins, and all becoming a mother. So here's the thing: when you first hold your child, you know that love that comes pouring in. That oh gosh, this
Oxytocin.
all of that does you're not thinking about it. It just comes from your heart. It's like your whole body. It's like you just went through so much of pain. I heard the stories about you being terrified and the screams and all of that. But when you see them hold the baby, all you see is that immense love and
Mm.
gratitude. And you see them kissing and like, I don't want to let go of the child of mine now. That's coming from the heart. And that's a lot of gratefulness and gratitude at that point, while we may not actually see it as such. But that love and all that comes at that point, those are from the emotion. So when you feel something that way, and when you express it, that's when the receiver actually also feels it. So it's not only you feeling it, the receiver also feels it. And you as a giver, when you can feel that immense gratitude, then it's in your body. I do not know how to actually say it. The
I know,
energy
I know, I know, I know how to say it.
the energy that you carry is there with you, and it can be
Yeah.
contagious.
So
Tell
I
me
want
what
to
you
just
want to
butt
say.
in. Yeah, for the people who are listening, because you're going into energy, and that's my last question for you, right? So actually, what you're saying is that and this is really what I wanted to I was very curious about this question, because a lot of times I think when we talk about gratitude, we think is the way we think is important, but if you really believe that you are grateful for something, means that creates an emotion, right, which we call feeling in our body, and that's the warmth that we are talking about. So I think, and sometimes when we are grateful here, may not be grateful here, and that is okay, because sometimes it takes time for us to shift our belief, especially like if you're going through a breakup, right? How to be grateful, or you lost your job, how to be grateful, or you got negative, or you lost a client, how to be grateful at that moment, not at that moment. But then I think what you're saying is that, you talk about happy hormones. So the four happy hormones that Bhavani is talking about is dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin.
Yes.
These are the hormones that keeps us not just happy, but it gives us positive physical energy, right? And when we, like just like what you Jonathan told you, is what did you learn from it? What is great about it? Or when you start journaling, you're writing down what went well, because our brains generally is tuned to look for negative stuff. So what
Yes.
we're doing is that, so naturally we'll remember what didn't go well. I had a horrible day. That's so easy, right? But now when you do an exercise, gratitude exercise, you're forcing your brain to interrupt your normal human negative pattern, because that's normal, right? To say, hey, there were good things that happened, just recalling what went well. There are so many things that goes well, and when you interrupt that, your brain changes, because it's recalling what happened. You're not tuning your brain, but it happened, it's just that you ignored it, right? And then it moves to your body system and say, oh, right, this is really good that it happened, warms your body, and your hormones are created. But the last question is, you actually mentioned energy, right? Because a lot of times we think about emotions and things like gratitude as just a feel good factor. But people, it's not a feel good factor. It actually impacts our physical energy because it impacts the energy we bring to life. When we are grateful, we have a certain energy, and that energy, that physical, and you have more energy for life, and that means I can do more things when I have more energy. So help us understand the physical energy and how much of energy does gratitude give us. If you can just enlighten us with that before we close.
Okay, here's where I think a lot of people struggle, and I had this struggle myself, because when something is not right, everything is focused on that. So let me put it into context of work. When I lose a client or I didn't get a deal, I'm very focused on that, and my entire being is actually focused on that, because, like it or not, it impacts my livelihood, my income, and how I'm going to support myself, all of that. And I think most people would be able to relate to this. So the misunderstanding I had was trying to be happy despite that, trying to find a blessing despite that, which is quite true, but I didn't know how.
Mm,
So what I found out was, you don't try to find something happy from that. You don't try to find something happy or grateful from that. But again, there are other things in life that is actually still working fine. And for me, sometimes it's probably just a trip to visit my sister's kids,
mm,
because that's love, that energy that comes from there. Then I'm so glad I actually have these kids around, and that
mm,
develops into a different energy. So
mm,
I can't look at losing a client and trying to think what I learned from that to give me that energy, but I need to look for it from a different perspective in life. And that could be anything that is happening for you.
mm,
And why this is important, because when you're very focused on something that's not working right, you go into a snowball effect, and it writes on and on and on, while the logic mind will tell you you're awesome, you're great, you have had this achievement, you have done this, you have done that. There's still a part of you that's beating yourself up. I'm not
mm,
sure whether many could relate, but I go through these phases where I really feel like, but why? I did my best, but why? And it's like, wasn't I right for this? Am I not
mm,
good enough for this? Those things
mm,
happen, and
mm,
that's energy as well.
mm, mm,
So it's finding other joyful things in life, which could be just like calling someone up and say I need to vent,
mm,
because then it may help me change my energy. So you got to have funny people or funny comedies around to really change that state of physical, because if you really can't laugh at something that is hilariously funny and change your state, then perhaps there's something else that's happening in the body. But I'm not sure how else I can describe energy, because energy is who we are. So if we think one way, we may get carried away and go very far away from what we want to be. But knowing that you can find this energy in other things that we love doing. So sometimes for me, it could be I turn to food a lot of times. So the best remedy for me is hot rice and sambar. That gives me a lot of sambar is dal, sorry. So hot rice and dal, that really perks me up. There's just something about hot rice and dal for me. So that brings me energy. My sister's kids or my cousin's kids is another round of energy. Or just going to my former bosses or my friend, like I think Malar, you may know them, Jega, Captain Ariva, why they break the energy pattern,
mm,
because they understand, and I will tell them whether I need them to solve my problem or I just need to rant. So they
mm,
will do accordingly. If I just need them to listen, they listen. If I need them to solve a problem, they will solve. But why I need these energy breakers is because I know they can break my energy that I'm going through a phase. Because if I don't, I'll
mm.
be stuck there and I'll be so unproductive for the next 1 or 2 weeks or even
Nice,
more.
nice. In fact, I wanted to tell you there's something for those who are interested in energy work. And so yesterday I did a bit of research, right? Because I'm talking to the goddess of gratitude. Uh, there's something called, you can check it up, map of consciousness. And in map of consciousness, they measure our physical energy, right? That means physically how strong you are. Okay, that's what it means, right? And so I've never seen gratitude as part in the map of energy, But when you Google the research, when we are grateful, the energy level is actually 540, which is which is described as joy in the map of consciousness, which
I
is,
didn't know that.
yeah, I'll give you that. Now, so we need to know. So above joy is peace and enlightenment. Enlightenment, we give it to Buddha and Jesus and all. Yeah, we don't want to get there, right? But that's at 700 enlightenment, right? But so for human states, the highest is actually at peace, which is at about 600. So gratitude that you mentioned is measured at 540. One is the highest level of energy a human can carry. So it's fantastic. It's equivalent to joy.
Wow,
All
that's a
right.
new
So
fact I
yeah, I
learned.
just wanted to share that because you said that. Number one. Number two is I'm going to read out some like lovely comments. But before I do that, the other thing I'm just wondering before again we close is this, right? I find so. For example, I never woke up in the morning in the past and I wasn't grateful for the sleep because I took my sleep for granted because I could sleep. Like until during the pandemic, right, I had a major health issue because I couldn't sleep, right? And I was depressed. First cannot sleep, then I got depressed, right? Today, every time I can sleep for 5 whole hours or 6 whole, every morning when I wake up, it's like I have had five. The first thing that warms my heart, however tough the day is going to be, is thank God. I wake up and I say, thank you, God, for the sleep. So I'm wondering whether our the feeling of natural gratitude comes from that space that sometimes we take for granted, that it's mine. It's my right to sleep. I can sleep. So I never realized it. There's no awareness, right? But and now that I know actually what I took for granted was probably really a blessing, and because I can't make it happen on my own, there's so much of effort
Hmm.
that goes into now going to sleep, right? So this is there a correlation in not knowing, that means not having the experience, and some of us want to have the experience, not having the experience of how the universe plays its part to make things good for you. And when you realize that, when someone comes and says thank you, someone helps you, right? When that event happens, gratitude naturally happens. I'm just wondering if there's a connection.
I think there's just so much things that's happened that's just bigger than us. I
Um,
prior to COVID, I used to beat around the fact that we need to be thankful for this, thankful for that. But then I just realized this. That was very unfair of me because now I am forcing people to be grateful for things that they don't realize or they don't understand why it should be something that they're grateful for. So COVID really changed a lot of my own perspective when it came to gratitude as well. And while there is a correlation, I still think that I wouldn't do justice to people if I say try being grateful for everything, for the air that you breathe, for the legs that you have to walk on. Perhaps this is something that one can actually, if you go about the journey of reflecting about life, doing more journaling work, then perhaps explore to all these other parts of life that you and I naturally take it for granted. For the fact that I've had bronchitis and asthma for the longest time,
mm,
and I'll forget to thank God, universe, for being able to breathe until I start suffering like this, and then I'll be like, "Yo, thank you, God, I can breathe. Night, I can sleep." But it's
nice.
just us humans. We take a lot of things for granted. But it's going
Mm,
to be very exhausting if we are trying to remember every single thing to be grateful for, because then the day will not happen.
nice.
And we cannot deny that there is a correlation, because you wouldn't know how it feels like when you take breath for me right now, taking breath for granted until I have difficulty breathing, and sleeping is such a problem, and my heartbeat is so high at night that I'm freaking out. But on normal days I don't think about this, even though I've gone through this episode.
Sure.
And when I start feeling thankful and grateful, there is a shift in me. But then it's exhausting because I'm trying to stay awake whole night trying to be grateful for everything that God has gifted me.
Nice.
um, yes, I believe there is a correlation, but at the same time, I wouldn't ask anyone to beat themselves up if they can't find a place in themselves to be grateful, because you will not know how grateful you are unless you lose it, and it's unfair to put that on someone and say that you got to be grateful to be alive, and they're like,
Nice, nice. And
how?
yeah, yeah. And I think that's a perfect close because while you're the goddess of gratitude, what you're also helping us to remember is that just be true to yourself. Know what it is to be normal. At the same time, we know gratitude brings about a lot of positive goodness for us. And for you to embrace gratitude, one way is actually journaling because it then forces you to interrupt your normal human pattern, and
Correct.
when you start writing it down you get into the spiritual space because that energy is the spiritual space of energy, right? And that's what you're telling us, and be real about it. Don't beat yourself up, and this is really important because then we don't beat people up when they are not showing gratitude because their time hasn't come yet, right? And for
Yes.
me, what you said, one of the big takeaways for me is that there's so much happening around us in the universe that comes to us as gifts, and we
Yep.
take them for granted because we thought the universe owed it to us. And sometimes just pausing and knowing that, hello, I didn't get all of it with my own effort, will bring that warm feeling of love from the universe or God to you. And that is gratitude. So, Bhavani, thank you very much. While you're thinking of one last sentence to part with all your friends here, I'm just going to read out my Regina Morris non-stop comments. Regina, I know you're moved. Yes, and I agree with you. Thank you, Bhavani. Firstly, you inspired me to write the book. Fantastic. Now you've given me the subject of my book. Fantastic. So, Regina, quickly tell me in the next 2 months, when are you coming on my show? Okay, Reggie, you owe me that. She says, Bhavani, you're living the name you have been consecrated with. Bhavani is the giver of life.
Is it?
Periasam, Bhavani Periasamy is
Yes.
Almighty God. Oh, nice. A Periasamy. Okay, okay. So
Correct.
you are living your purpose
Yeah.
absolutely right, Angie. And last one, writing and speaking about what you've experienced and worked at is living your purpose. I think.
Thank you. Thank you.
And, you know, I want to personally thank you for saying yes to the show, uh, for bringing so many of your fans into this, for all the people who have appeared or commented on the show. I thank you from the bottom of my heart because that is really, I'm grateful because I know how discouraging it is sometimes when you don't have anyone on a live show. I know, so when people appear, it's like, oh my God, people make time for us, right? For the
Yeah.
topic, even though people watch it later. So, everybody, I've named you, but thank you very much for taking time and being with us in the last 1 hour. The book is sold in Borders, and I think we have put in a link as well for you to actually look at, where to buy, how dare they. Now, with that, I want to thank, and before we close, Bhavani, is there anything else you'd like to say before we say our final goodbye?
Yes, and this is really what my message and what I really want to do. Um, we are all groomed and told to say thank you, but just add another layer. Tell them what the thank you means. Then it makes their day, rather than just saying, "Hey, thanks for this, thanks for that." So that's what I want to leave today with. Just
No.
see why that thank you means.
Thank you. So remember now, just lengthen your sentence and practice your vocal cords by saying, thank you for this. And what will even be better, because like you have to add lah. Thank you for this, and what you did has this impact on me. Right?
Yes,
I'm Yeah,
exactly.
and I think that would be fantastic. So thank you, Bhavani. Thank you for saying yes, and thank you for coming on the show
Thank you
despite
so
the
much to
call.
everyone who showed up.
All right. With that, we will say bye to Bhavani. For those who've joined us, thank you very much. Till we meet you with another exciting guest that Bhavani had mentioned just now in the show. I will see you next Friday, same time, same place, different sari, being whole, being me, series 92 next week. Before that, subscribe to our YouTube. please forward and share this with other people so that they will subscribe to our YouTube before we end at 100 episode. For that, I would be grateful in advance. Take care till I see you next week. Bye.